Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Accountants Choose Divvy for Expense Management and QBO Integration. I am Gary Dehart, the publisher of Insightful Accountant, Tax Practice News, and the host of Accounting Insiders podcast, and the host of today's webinar. Our speakers are Liz Scott, and Kevin Lynch. But before I turn the webinar over to them, I do have a couple of housekeeping items to cover. And once we turn it over, they will give themselves a proper introduction. And so for housekeeping, we do have CPE for this session. So just like all CPE sessions, you must be present for 50 minutes of the presentation, and you must answer at least 3 of the poll questions. And we only have 3, so that means you must answer all of the poll questions. So again, 50 minutes, 50 minutes present, and answer all 3 poll questions. So once you meet that criteria, you will receive an email with a short 3-question survey about the webinar. Complete that survey and we'll send you your certificate. That all takes place within the next 24 hours or so. If you have any questions, we're going to ask you to put them in the questions panel. And I do want to let you know that the recording will be available on our YouTube channel, usually within about 24 hours. And the slide deck will also be available. I will put that in the chat along with the link to our YouTube channel. And then as kind of the last way for you to receive all this information is we will send you a follow-up email within about 24 hours that also has the link to the YouTube and a link to the slide deck, which will be in our box folder. That is all that I have for housekeeping. So Liz and Kevin, thank you both so much for joining us today and for leading this session.
Thank you, Gary. I'm definitely happy to be here. Let me go ahead and give an introduction to myself. So my name is Liz Scott, and I'm a practitioner. I have a firm, and we work with small business clients. I do a lot of work with Intuit, so part of the Pro Advisor team, and then also the Happy Hour. So I do a lot of fun stuff with accounting technology. And Kevin, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm over here on the Divvy side, where I help geek out over helping people save time automating their financial operations, whether that's credit cards, accounts payable, things of that nature. My background is I have my master's degree in business administration from Utah Valley University, and when I'm not geeking out over helping people save time, I am trying to shave time from the clock because I'm an avid runner.
That avid runner. So one of the cool things that social's there for is to go and stalk somebody. So Kevin, I stalked you. I went online and I found out that you are not just an avid runner, but you're talking about like competitive level running. So super glad that you're with us. Yeah, you're talking about competitive running on a whole different level. You want to share any of that?
Yeah, so I ran in college. I really focused on the long distance events. I wasn't quite fast enough to do anything shorter. Sprinting wise, it was too short. I needed longer to warm up. So I focused on like 5K, 10K and cross country in college. And now I run half marathons to marathons for fun and competitively as like a semi-professional athlete. I do have some sponsorships and I have an agent that represents me. And my goal currently is to qualify for the 2024 US Olympic trials.
Woo woo. Yeah, that's definitely really, really cool. So when I saw that about you, I thought, oh my gosh, I gotta ask you, dive into that some more. So everybody, what you've got here today is this team of myself, which my perspective is the accounting firm. And then you've also got Kevin here, and he's going to be weighing in on the Divvy side. So that way we can answer your questions. If you've got them, throw them in the chat. And then I'm going to walk you through why, as an accounting firm, we chose Divvy, not only for ourselves, but also for our clients. So the place that I'm going to begin is by saying that the firm role has changed. So what we used to be asked for was stuff about compliance, bookkeeping, are we up to date? And now what I'm getting is calls probably over the last 5 years. Tell me what tech to use. Help me with where should I carve out dollars and maybe I'm spending too much. So that leads us into how do we start thinking about ways to be able to help our clients? And one of the things that I like to do in my own firm and with my clients is automate as much as possible, which is why I'm constantly looking at tech. I'm thinking about who's a great fit for it. I'm looking at my team. I'm thinking about what is their abilities. And so that also determines what tech I'm going to look for. But the thing that clients are asking me most often is, how do I automate? And that brings me over to tech. And it makes me think about what are the ways that I look at tech? How can I get in contact with those apps or those solutions, whatever you call them? And the thing that's really handy is going to webinars just like this, or going over and searching. I can't tell you how many times I do like a Google search, and I'll go and look to see what are the reviews, what are other people saying. If you're somebody like myself, a pro advisor, I go check out apps.com and I'm looking at which apps integrate with QuickBooks. What are the reviews? So those are all things that I do. And then with being able to talk peer to peer, that's where you start to find out, what's the customer service like? What's that connectivity experience like? So those are the ways that I definitely research tech, because where my clients are going is tech stacks. And the tech stack, they don't always think about having this tech stack in that kind of thought process, but what instead they want to ask is, what do I put in for an app for that? What do I use for that? And where we come into play as the role of helping to advise on tech is to be able to say, how do they interact with each other? Do those applications need to interact with each other? And if so, what's the order of that flow? And that's where I think that it's really important for us to start being able to know what's out there, know how those interact with each other, what should that connection be, and then being able to say to the clients, here's a recommended tech stack, or let's look at what you're currently using, and should we find a different solution? So that's whenever the technology advice comes into play. So I'm going to go ahead and say, this is where Divvy comes in. Can I get you, Kevin, to come off mute? I want you to talk a little bit about what is Divvy, because some of the people here might be brand new.
Yeah, absolutely. And to kind of go like a nice segue in from the tech stack, like Divvy's whole goal is to try and do less with more. So we're trying to really just automate your financial operations, specifically when it comes to credit card expenditures. So people are spending on cards. How are we gathering those receipts? How are we coding those transactions? How are we pushing that information into QuickBooks? That stuff takes a lot of time. Divvy's goal is to help, how can we automate that as quickly as possible? So Divvy offers us not only a software to help code and collect all those receipts to automatically push into QuickBooks, but we also offer it for free because we issue the credit card with it as well. So instead of there being, two separate parts of the tech stack where we have the software and the card as part of our tech stack, that's combined into one part where it's the card and the software. So there's never going to be any sort of breaks in our links. So there's never going to be any issues with why the certain transactions aren't showing up inside the software. Divvy is both of those. So it helps clean up our tech stack and automate the processes for expenses and our accounting.
That's awesome. And I'm curious here how many people are already using Divvy, because it's a solution that's been around for a while. So it's something that is widely known about in different circles. So it's fascinating to me to learn, are people here interested in Divvy because it's something new to them, or are you also interested in some of the setting up of Divvy? Like maybe you've got it part of the way, but you're here because you're also curious about a few more things in the setup process, because just kind of a nugget for later, Kevin's going to walk us through a demo. So if you've got questions, make sure you're throwing them over in chat.
And I'll pipe in here as well to kind of help answer some of your questions there. Divvy roughly has around 100,000 customers currently and growing each month. And we process roughly, like $1 billion in spending on our cards over $1 billion in spending on our cards each month.
That's a lot. And I'm already seeing somebody saying, I already use Divvy, so that's cool. We do too in our firm. So, whenever I think about who's right for Divvy from my perspective, whenever I think about my team members and how they need to have access to funds, that's the way that we're using Divvy in our firm. So each one of our team members have dollars that are allocated to them for certain needs. And then, when I'm thinking about my clients, I actually came into contact with Divvy because I had a client who needed to be able to control some of those expenses. And that was such a good experience for myself that I wanted to learn more. So that's what happened in our firm and why we started utilizing Divvy.
No, go on.
Oh, yeah, I know. I mean, you probably have ideas about this too, because what I'm thinking about when clients reach out to me, it's going to be somebody who IT, they've got lots of subscriptions, or it's somebody who is out in the field a lot and they've got team members who need to have Divvy cards and access to money. But Kevin, who else is asking you? What other industries?
Yeah, so there's kind of a couple of main pain points. It's not necessarily, that's what's great about Divvy is we kind of cover all sorts of industries, whether that's farming to SaaS or technology companies to accounting firms to HVAC to plumbing. It's just all over the place of the companies we help. So it's rather, I've seen we help a couple of different main priorities. One of them being, hey, I need more control over my credit card spending, whether that's employees out in the field overspending. Divvy help solve that. Two, I need more insight and visibility over our spend. So maybe I want to know who's approving different purchases, or I want to see more in real time who's spending, why they're spending. That's what Divvy can help us with. Third part is, hey, we're spending way too long gathering receipts from employees, coding transactions, spending way too long pushing that stuff into our accounting software or QuickBooks. That's what Divvy's going to help with. And then lastly, people who are just spending a lot on a credit card and are trying to maximize some sort of reward rebate, Divvy's going to help there as well, of being a strategic partner to help us understand what is best to put on a credit card and then trying to maximize the rebate.
Those are all fantastic points. And, coming from the accounting perspective, the thing that I'm constantly looking at is how does the tech that I'm finding for my client work with the accounting solution? So I'm a QuickBooks Online user. I'm going to say 99% of all of our clients are in QuickBooks Online. So having that kind of connection is really important. So that was part of our decision when we were looking for not only our client, but for ourselves. We wanted something that we could push that data into QuickBooks. And Kevin, you hit on it. You said that eliminating that manual activity where somebody is out in the field and they've spent some dollars, maybe they were on a credit card or their own money from their wallet, that still needs to be recorded as an expense and it needs to be timely. And so that's one of the reasons why the integration was super important to us. The other thing is we wanted to be able to have control with our clients into the general ledger mapping. So whenever I'm thinking about issuing a card to a team member, and that's internally in our firm, I'm thinking about how are they going to be using that card? Are they going to be using this for travel? And so I want to be able to have that category that says, if they spend dollars on travel, go ahead and map to the general ledger. And whenever I'm mapping to the general ledger in Divvy, I have the ability to shrink my chart of accounts. So that way, if my team member is selecting that account, they don't have to go through maybe 200 of the chart of accounts in the general ledger. Instead, there's only maybe 5. Or I can say it's going to just be a card spent for travel, so make it always travel. So there's some controls that I can do. And you were talking about pain points earlier, and overspending from that accounting perspective, that's what I commonly see, is that clients are talking with me about how do I become more profitable? How do I make better business decisions? And part of it is having some parameters. You know, maybe you think that you're going to have a budget for X amount, but if there's nothing in play that puts some bumper rails on that spending, then there's no controls. And I come from the belief that I don't think most people want to do bad, but if there are no bumper rails, that's where I start to see some fraudulent activity come into play. I went to the gas station and I bought fuel, but I also bought this whole meal and may or may not have put that all on my business card. You know, maybe that's okay, but you need to definitely have that guardrail put into place. And any time that you're starting to put parameters, your team members, whether that is contractors or that's employees, start to understand that they have an area that they need to work within. This is the one that whenever I was talking about the spending parameters, so if you're somebody who has that physical card, you can say, how would you like them to be able to spend those dollars? So for me, I've got clients that have field workers. That's really, really common for the clients that I work with. And they need to be able to go out, purchase materials for a particular job. And that's going to happen almost every single time that they go to a new job. So they definitely need to be able to have access to spend money. So those physical cards are going to be something that they'll need to keep in their wallets. But again, you still can put some parameters on how they spend. For our firm, what we have is a ton of subscriptions. You know, like I was saying, I'm a tech head. So great. Also, whenever I go and look at my expenses, not so great. So this is an area that I definitely in my own firm have felt that Divvy has helped me, because when there's subscriptions, there's also increases in prices. And I wasn't able to catch that before. Kevin, you were talking about using a credit card and just a general credit card. It is really, really hard to tell if somebody has changed the price on you. There's no parameter.
Absolutely. Hardly, you only know, you find out when it's too late, typically, when they've already had the money in their bank account for weeks.
You find out whenever it's too late. I mean, you know, it's after the fact completely. So money's been spent, dollars are gone. And that's if you have the time to go find it out at all. So what we've done is we have created virtual cards for each one of our subscriptions in our firm. So I might say that I've got a subscription and I expect it to be $100 a month and it's going to be reoccurring. Then I'm going to create what they call a virtual card. So it's a burner card in Divvy. And then I'm going to say, I only want that card to have a budget of $100. So if that subscription goes up even $5, I'm going to know because that transaction is going to fail. And then I can go back in and I can look at my failed transactions and I can determine, do I want to adjust that Divvy budget in order to allow that subscription to charge the $5? Or do I not want to pay the additional dollars and it's time for me to then turn off that subscription? And I would say here with turning off that subscription, sometimes that's easier than not. And so I go back to that original, you were talking about this generic credit card. It's hard to turn off subscriptions if you can't get through to customer service. So that's why for me, if I've got a burner card, I can't get through to customer service, I just delete the burner card. I no longer need this virtual card and it doesn't need to renew. I'm going to cancel that subscription that way. And I don't have to worry about changing my credit card number. Any thoughts there, Kevin?
No, yeah, I was actually just going to say this happened to me earlier this week. I had some subscription that helps you edit PDFs, and it was something I only needed for like a very short time. So I had it for a couple months, and then I didn't want it to renew afterwards, and I only put the very specific amount that I needed on there. I instantly, when it was supposed to renew, and I told them I didn't want it to renew, they tried to sneakily take the card anyway. However, with Divvy, I instantly got the notification that was really for double what it should have been in the first place. It was like a $60 subscription, and then they charged me $120. But it declined right away because of this virtual card and being able to control how much the vendor even has available to begin with in the first place. And I can set when that card's going to expire. So, I kind of covered myself in two ways. One, hey, I set the specific amount on there so they couldn't overcharge me. Two, I set the expiration date specifically when the contract was supposed to expire, so they couldn't sneakily try and charge something on my card before I could catch it.
The other thing that I've seen happen is sometimes you get double charged. So in 1 month, there's maybe 2 subscription fees that come across, the one that you expected, and then there's this other thing that you didn't realize was part of it. So they tell you about a piece, but this is definitely a way to be able to catch those types of activities. I'm going to say that this is a great time for our first poll. So Gary, if you can launch our first poll, thank you. Give everybody some time to answer this question. So what is the biggest pain point your company has when it comes to managing business expenses? We need an all the above.
Yeah, this is a trick question. It should be all the above.
So, it says biggest pain point. Okay, I get it, but all of them. Definitely the employees' pocket reimbursements. That's one of those that I find that my clients sometimes struggle with. Is this payroll or is this not? And so that's a good one right there, to be able to stop out-of-pocket expenses.
And just a reminder, if you do want the CPE, you do need to participate. We only have 3 polls, so you need to hit each one of them. We'll get this closed out in about 5 more seconds. 3, 2, and 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. So how are you spending dollars? Whenever you're thinking about expense management and how Divvy comes into play, this is where you start to think about, where are those dollars being spent in your business? Is it something like, my clients that are out in the field, they've got to go buy materials? Is it because you've got some marketing? So I work with a lot of e-commerce businesses. They have tons of online spending. They need to be able to market. That's the only way that they're going to be able to get new customers. So for them, it's really important to have spending parameters inside of marketing. So they might even go into saying, I'm going to spend so much in Google Ads. I'm going to spend so much in some type of pay-per-clicks, so Facebook marketing or those kinds of things. You can set parameters, and you can even set cards for each one of those different scenarios, just like what I do with my subscriptions for my technology. This is what my budgets look like. So I'm giving you a sneak peek into my Divvy account. And if you look, I've got training is in as a budget. And the reason that I've got training is my different team members want to go out and they want to subscribe to different channels. They want to be able to get additional peer-to-peer knowledge. So they'll do some types of training courses, and they know they've always got a budget there. Sometimes I've had team members who have asked me, I want to be able to pull in an expert, so maybe a consultant in a particular area, and I can adjust those dollars that they've got monthly. But the goal here is it's $100. So for each one of my team members, they have so much money that they can use in order to further their education. They don't even have to ask, but we got some spending parameters. my QuickBooks subscriptions, yeah, I've got my budget there for 3,000. That's because I want to be able to pay for those client subscriptions and they're going to reimburse me. Or, just even our own subscriptions. So we've got those broken down. I even have clients that I want to be able to track their apps, their technology that they use. So I might go ahead and prepay for that, but I want to be able to know that for X client, I paid for their QuickBooks subscription and I maybe paid for their Shopify subscription or something else. And then they're going to reimburse me. But if those subscriptions that my client are reimbursing me for, if those ever change in price, I'm aware of it. And that helps me to know, am I charging my client on that reoccurring fee monthly? Am I charging them correctly? So these are some ways that I have into the insights of our business. And what happens is if somebody tries to spend outside of that budget, the card is declined. And this is where, Kevin, I'm going to ask you, because you're probably going to do a way better job of it, of sharing if somebody's out in the field, because I've had clients have this happen, and say that the water heater that they want to purchase is $2,500 and they only have permissions for $2,000. What would they do?
Yeah, great question. I'm actually going to go ahead. Well, can I share my screen? Is that okay?
Oh yeah, of course. Let me say.
Yeah, so there's.
Go for it.
What's really nice about Divvy is we have the ability to really customize how you want things to work. So I'm sharing my screen here. This is really how it's the most effective way. Hey, why this way? Because our goal at Divvy, as we've talked about, is to be very proactive about how we're spending money. So we never want to be surprised when we see a statement, look back and say, I can't believe I got charged for that subscription. I thought I canceled it. Never going to happen with Divvy. Same thing with employees spending out in the field. So in this case, hey, I have $8. In your case, hey, they would have $2,000 available, but this thing is $2,500. What they can easily do just from their phone, instead of calling the bank or calling you to have to call the bank to increase their limit, they can easily just say, I need more money, and here's why I need it. Submit the request. In real time, that gets sent to an approver. That approver gets some sort of notification on their phone saying, hey, so-and-so just needs this much more money. Here's how much they currently have. Here's how much they really want. Here's how much we've assigned for that project. And here's why they think they need it. If you as an approver need more information, talk to them to understand why they may need to buy this water heater or cooler or whatever. And then, hey, if we have all the information we need, we can just approve it instantly. Their limit now goes up to $2,500 to have them purchase that water cooler or water heater. So we're always in control. We're always in the know of why people are needing the money that they're needing and why they're spending the money that they need to.
Okay, all right. I got to share with everybody that you're awesome on the fly, because we did not have that planned, and I was just throwing a question at you and you jumped into answering that question and being able to demo it for us. So thank you.
Absolutely. And there are some other ways you could do that, but that's probably going to be the easiest way, and we can kind of go over some other ways we want. That's the way we kind of recommend at Divvy, once again, so we can always have the most insight and the most control.
So as far as insights go, this takes me to the dashboard, because this is our actual dashboard and you can see the last 12 months worth of activity. And this helps us because it lets us to know, were there months in maybe in the second quarter that we had more spending than we expected? And is there a reason as to why? Maybe that's traveling conference season, or maybe that's your business is going over some changes and you're moving workflows or infrastructure of some kind. So this gives you an idea as to how did you spend those dollars and to what's the activity. These are the virtual cards that I was showing you, talking to you about earlier. So this is what we use. These virtual cards, this is exactly whenever I log in, what I see. I'm able to see that my number is masked. So I go in, I just click on it and it automatically copies that credit card number. And then I can use it over on my subscription screen to put in as my payment method. And you can see down at the bottom of this one, this actually says the subscription that it's used for, WordTune. That's a really cool solution that we use for being able to reword phrases. And it's $25 a month. So it's super, super easy and it's very affordable. Physical cards, that works exactly like what Kevin was talking about, where you've got the actual card, you go out into the real world and you're spending money. The thing that I want to show here is this is a client that I was talking about that originally introduced me to Divvy. So they had done their homework and they already knew about Divvy, but I kid you not, this is what I walked into whenever I met with this client. I sat down at the office manager's desk and in walked one of their techs and he said, "Hey, I need money for a job." She opened up her drawer, she grabbed out the checkbook, she went over to the owner and said, "Sign this." She ripped that check out and gave it, that blank check, to that team member to then trust them to use it appropriately. So all kinds of things felt so wrong here. And then the other piece of it was, that doesn't make sense for many different reasons, but one of those, even outside of the spending controls and the fraud possibilities, and you need or dependent on the owner being there, you also now have a situation where you have to wait till that check clears the bank, then log into the bank, go look at the handwriting, which team member was it that you gave this blank check to, go find out how much it was, what was the vendor, and then go and record that in QuickBooks. So that was replaced with this scenario. They were all given Divvy expense cards. The office manager, she even had a virtual card, and then the budgets were determined. So we actually had a meeting with lots of the different team members, and they shared with me, how are they spending money and what are those different funds for? And that's how, with the owner, we were able to create these different budgets that were appropriate for that business. And then the last part was the QuickBooks Online sync. So the sync was very important to me because I wanted to make sure that QuickBooks was updated automatically, and we had, at any time, we could go and look at the expenses for that business. So Kevin, is this kind of what you see happening too in a lot of businesses, where they go from chaotic spending all over the place to, oh my gosh, how are you operating, to a scenario like this?
Exactly. And even sometimes even worse, where employees are spending out in the field. Hey, we need the receipts for that. They're either manually handing them in, or sometimes they're even physically mailing them in through the snail mail to get to the right person, which is just crazy for me to think about. Divvy just helps concise everything in one place, one location, easily for end users and admins to be able to use.
That's the scenarios where you go, okay, I hate my job. Like, I have to go and mail receipts in, or you're on the other side of it and you have to wait for those mailed receipts to come in. No. So, I go back to, I'm a glass half full kind of girl. I want to be able to give the best win scenario possible. If somebody operates out that side of that parameter, then we need to pull them back in, but we've got to define what that parameter is, so that way they know they've got some expectations here. I'm going to say this is a great time to do our next poll. So Gary, if you want to launch this poll, thank you. So how likely is your firm company to adopt new fintech that provides better processes for you and your clients' financial operations? This one feels like it's a bit of a trick too. You kind of have to. Yeah, anytime that I'm working with clients, they're bringing tech to me. So, if I'm not ahead of them, then I feel like I'm behind them. And then I'm seeing the results of maybe a bad choice or an unfinished connection. I'll be quiet, Gary, if you want to count.
That's all right. Yeah, I was going to say, and just a reminder, if you want the CPE, go ahead and complete this poll. We'll close it out in about 5 more seconds. 3, 2, and 1. And about 44% were very likely, 33% somewhat likely, 11% unlikely, and 11% NA.
That's super helpful. Talking about our audience here, Mary Ann, one of the things that you had mentioned was you're interested in Divvy and you're curious about it for a nonprofit. This is where I think about the cost of Divvy. There is no fee to use Divvy. To you, there's not a subscription per month, so you don't have to create a Divvy virtual card for the subscription. There's not one. And if you're curious and you're like, well, how are they making dollars? This is where you would say the dollars are coming from the usage of the card on the store side. And so the store is getting a percentage and then Divvy's getting a percentage, which results in there's no cost to you or the client. And the types of businesses, again, I definitely call into play nonprofits. They don't have budgets, whether that's a church and they've got youth ministries and they want to buy VBS materials, then they know what their budgets are, they know what their parameters are and who's allowed to spend those dollars. And it just makes it where people don't have to ask. They already know that it's available, because that's something that holds up businesses, is this delay of, well, I didn't want to ask. Maybe you've got somebody who's really concerned about using their own money, or they don't want that blank check given to them, or they don't want cash handed to them. They want to be able to behave correctly, but they don't know what's the way to be able to have access to those dollars. I want to also say that, Kevin, you were talking about points. A lot of people come to Divvy and they're asking, do you have travel credits, or do you have some type of point system? This is actually mine. So I'm sharing what mine looks like. So you can see here that I've built up some points and I have choices what I want to do with those points so I can use them on travel. Or I could do gift cards. But this is definitely one of the options that you have. And it is based on, the points are based on how are you repaying back the expenses that are spent in my scenario. So for me, I'm doing weekly. The other thing that I want to, as the accountant, tell everyone here that what's also available to you as accountants is the firm resources. So I had a person who worked with me to get set up initially, and then they still to this day check in with me and they ask me, do I need any type of resources? Do I have clients that need to be trained? Or do I want to just have Divvy handle the setup and then I might come along to those training sessions with them? But this is definitely part of the resources, and there's even a partner program. So Kevin, I think this would be a cool time for me to stop sharing if you want to take it over and maybe do our demo.
Yeah.
All right, take it away, Kevin.
Share my screen. What I did as well, I'm just going to put this in the chat, my email, so we all have it here. If I don't get to answer a specific question, or hey, there's maybe some more specialized specific questions that you may be wondering, please email me. I'd love to either chat back via email, or we could set up like a personalized demo to see if this could be a good fit. So I wanted to make sure you had that info. But I'm sharing my screen now. And then to also go back to answering Mary Ann's question is, hey, like interested in Divvy for a nonprofit, you kind of have no experience with it. kind of starting like, how do we get started with Divvy? What's going to make sense here? I'm just going to, sorry, moving things around, but Divvy's, all we need from you is just to fill out some sort of credit application. There's no contracts, there's no length of stay agreements of how long you have to stay with Divvy or how much you need to spend onto Divvy. There's nothing like that we require. The only thing that we're going to ask you once again is just to fill out a credit application. And you know, for nonprofits and in other companies, it's rather easy. We can just look at past couple years of business financials. That's what we're going to base the credit line off of. So people aren't having to sacrifice, personal credit in that scenario. So really, once again, it fits really for any sort of company. We can make it work. Now, one of the things we wanted to kind of go over today is, as Liz talked about, is creating budgets. Once again, this is just a term that we use to help proactively put parameters around spending, whether that's a certain location of people or a certain group of individuals, or maybe it's a department, maybe it's a mix of all three. You have the flexibility to customize Divvy to whatever your needs are. What's nice about Divvy as well is we actually give you an implementation specialist, is what we call them. Their goal is to help set up your account, make sure it's customized to you. And so you don't have to do that heavy lifting. We basically just tell us, hey, this is what we're looking for. They build it out for you, including these budgets. So we'll create a new one today to kind of go over what this looks like. And we're going to say, hey, it's going to be like a sales budget, because everyone understands sales. Now, hey, this is, once again, we're taking from the large credit line that we have. I'll use easy round numbers today, 100,000. Maybe we want to give the sales team 20,000 of that. They're pre-approving the sales team to spend $20,000. Now, hey, if we want to be nice, maybe we set a buffer. Maybe this is the first time we're doing this. We're not sure exactly how much we want. So we're going to set a buffer of maybe $1,000 that they could go over. Or maybe we just say, hey, we only want them to go over $100. In case they do have to go over that, they've been, once again, pre-approved to go over $100. Now, once again, we can customize this. Hey, the sales team needs to spend this. Maybe it's every single month. Maybe it's every quarter. Maybe it's every year. Or maybe we have a specific expiration date. If it's a certain project that we're working on, hey, this project is supposed to end maybe end of June, end of second quarter, this project is going to end. That's when these funds will expire. No one's going to have access to these anymore. Next, we're just going to add team members. Who's the person that's going to manage the sales team or manage the, that 20,000 over there? In this case, hey, we see Sarah on the call here. She may not be in this one, actually, so bad example. Hey, I'm managing the sales team. So I'm going to be the one kind of over this 20,000, seeing maybe which individual reps need more money, less money when they request funds. Hey, that can come to me for approval as to, yes, they need to spend more for this or that. You can have as many budget owners as you'd like, have it just be admins, have it be managers, have it be both, up to you to customize. Then you just add team members. In this case, hey, we're going to add all the salesmen. That's going to be Aaron. That's going to be Brant. That's going to be Christian. And, maybe we're looking for Joey Triviani. Now we've added all the team members in here. We're done. This is talking about how we want them to be shared. Do we want a lot of people just like, hey, I don't want to restrict my salesmen or these people so they can all share the 20,000. When the 20,000 gets run up, they can't spend anything more. Or some people like to have a more controlled approach, as we've talked about, where, hey, we want to make sure everybody has a different individual amount, has to be set by an admin to do so. So we'll keep it there. Then, hey, we're just going to make sure when the sales team spends, maybe we want it coded to a specific department or a specific class or location or whatever we're looking for inside of QuickBooks. We can automatically set this up. So once again, have this be a lot easier for the end user. Two, have it be easier for the accounting team so they're not always wondering who spent this on the sales team, why did they spend it for? We're speeding up this process so we don't have to do the same thing over and over inside of QuickBooks. Just a review page here, everything looks good. Let's create the budget. It's going to take us right in. We can see right now, hey, I'm the owner. I'm the one who's over this account. I can change people's limits in real time. Joey Tribbiani, hey, he's going somewhere. I need to give him $500. He gets $500. This is kind of the idea that we have. Once again, let us have more control over our spending so we're never being surprised. We're being proactive about how we spend. What a lot of people will do is, hey, let's add people to these budgets, but have them look like Joey Tribbiani and everyone else here where it's $0. So yeah, they have a card, but they never spend money, or they don't have access to money. And if they do need to spend, that's when we're going to walk through this exact scenario we walked through earlier of them seeing, of them saying, hey, I need to request funds because I need to spend for this reason or that reason. This is really helpful for increasing credit limits at the point of like, hey, they realize at the store, I don't have enough money. Don't panic, just request the funds, we'll be okay. Also replaces the use for personal reimbursement, so we're not having to go through that long of a process, things like that. I'll allow, feel free to kind of cue questions into the chat there as I go over, creating like a virtual card, and once again, reemphasize points of why we'd want to do this. Super simple. Hey, maybe we have a new subscription. It's for our Gmail, or maybe it's for our Google Ads. So we'll type in here, hey, this card name is for Google Ads. We want this to be tied to some sort of spending. In this case, hey, it's going to be like marketing, or this is a demo environment where we just have random things in here. So I'll just type it in, hey, our Google Ads is tied to our sales. Do we want to limit on this card to be spent? So, hey, our Google Ads subscription is only $500. So $500. We want to do this for all future months too. Yes. So that way, hey, Google Ads will never double charge us, never overcharge us. We're always in control exactly how much money is available to Google to take from us as the company. This is also where we can set those burner cards. As we described, hey, maybe we want for a subscription, we want to make sure we're not going to get burned on our end. So we're going to set a specific expiration date. So that, hey, I want it to end on this day because this is when the subscription is supposed to end. Or potentially, maybe we give an employee a virtual card. Hey, book your travel. I'm going to have it expire on Tuesday. So then they don't even have access to that card anymore. There's just a one-time card for them to be able to use at that moment. Who do we want who's managing, in this case, who's managing these Google Ads? That's the person who's going to kind of be over this card, managing that for us. And then once again, we can pre-fill these custom GL codes, expense categories, things of that nature, because we know what we want Google Ads to look like inside of QuickBooks before it's ever been spent. So when we make this card, we say when Google takes a payment, we want it to go to this department, to this expense category, to this GL code. In this case, we just have 2 because that's what we have connected. But you could, get as granular as we need. I'll just pick random ones here for us in this example, and then, don't need receipts. And then we would easily, I guess I need to put an owner here, create the card. So now every time that card gets spent, we have full transparency when that card gets spent by looking at it under this transactions tab of seeing, hey, yep, I see that Google has taken that payment and it's automatically been coded correctly. We can see that it was to the right expense, to the right GL, to the right department. We're good to go. Automatically we'll push into QuickBooks. Which leads me to the next part of like working with QuickBooks. When I mentioned that implementation specialist, you work with them, they're easily going to just take straight from your chart of accounts, bring them over into Divvy and say, what do we want people to see when they spend? We can limit that based off of user. So, hey, when I spend, I see a totally different set of GL codes than when Liz spends. So we're not confusing users on GL codes that don't need to be there. For example, when people spend, they instantly get some sort of notification saying, hey, why did you spend the money? They can instantly take a picture of the receipt. Now it's uploaded inside of Divvy for as long as we need it for, or as long as the IRS is going to require. And that will actually also push into QuickBooks. But we can take it a step further. Hey, tell us why you spent the money. What's the GL code? And this is where we can limit what GL codes people are seeing. So in this case, hey, I know as a user, this was a hotel. So if something didn't go in my mouth, then I know it must be traveling. Pretty simple for me because I don't know what code 45786 means, but I know travel. Now it's done. And accounting has all that they need. Me as an end user, it's great because I don't have to hold on or mail in a receipt anymore. And I haven't had to worry about trying to figure out accounting codes. Once again, accounting sees that real time under this transactions tab for them to review before we push that into QuickBooks. Now, Divvy does integrate with QuickBooks rather easily. We have like integrations with 4 main accounting softwares: QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Desktop, Sage, and NetSuite. And so with those 4, we can have it be mapped through, or really with those 4, we have an automatic sync. And so what I mean by an automatic sync is once it's passed through the last approver, for example, I make a purchase, all my purchases need to be approved by Liz. Once Liz approves those, we're good to go. At the end of each night, all the approved transactions by Liz will automatically be pushed into QuickBooks. No one has to push any buttons. We're just saving you time of not coding these transactions because Divvy's doing that for us. And then we're not saving you time of having to manually enter those into QuickBooks. Once again, Divvy's pushing those over automatically into our chart of accounts.
Kevin, I love it. Being able to see the budgets, creating the cards, mapping to the GL accounts, and then exporting. That was everything that I asked to show to everyone, because as an accountant user, that's what matters most. So we have a question here, and I'd like to ask it from Philip. And he says, can I allocate a charge to a customer or a job?
Yeah, so I went over this pretty quickly here, but so we call it an incomplete transaction. And I'll show it to you in this example. What's nice is end users have access to the like a computer dashboard as well, and a mobile app, and admins have access to the dashboard and a mobile app as well. So anything that an admin can do online, they can also do in the app, and anything an end user could do in the app, they could also do online. Now, this is a simple example of we just have like a budget, a department, and a GL code. But we could make as many custom fields or dimensions as you'd like. Case in point, a job, a customer, a note, memo, receipt, GL code, expense category, cost type, anything that you could think of. I think I've seen up to like 10 requirements before. Imagination runs wild. You can customize that.
That's a super question. So maybe, Kevin, what's a common question that you get asked a lot whenever you're working with people and they're doing a demo with you?
Yeah, I actually think you did a good job of covering most of that. A lot of times what people ask is like, hey, I want to make sure the approval flow works well. When this person spends, we need this person to approve it, and then it comes to this person. That's what most people are looking for. For example, hey, we do have a charge, by a specific project or a specific job. That project manager needs to approve those purchases first. Then it can come to me as the accountant. That's what I get asked a lot. Definitely something we can set up to make sure all the eyes are getting on transactions that need to be. And I do see Lisa's question. I imagine that's where you were going next. Charges don't necessarily have to be approved, but a lot of people just like there to be some sort of approval flow, whether that's a pre-approval, like a pre-transaction spending, and then they also like to have some sort of approval flow post-transaction spending. But you don't necessarily have to have there be an approver. You could just push those over into QuickBooks whenever.
And Lisa, I don't. So in our firm situation, we're small, so everything is approved because I created the budgets and then authorized those users for those budgets. So another great question is, Philip is asking, are the cards US based? Do you need to stay in the States in order to be able to use those cards?
I guess, great question, Philip. I did fail to mention one thing about what we need to sign up. The only thing we need to sign up to Divvy is a US bank account and a US EIN number. Besides that, the cards are a Visa card or a MasterCard, so they will be accepted anywhere Visa or MasterCard is accepted. That includes overseas.
Well, thank you. So I think that we've got one more polling question. Is that right, Gary? All right, thank you. And so you launched that. And we're here towards the end of our time together, but I want to make sure if you've got any questions, use the Q&A to post those questions. And if we can get to those right now, we're going to definitely answer those. And then otherwise, I would say, Kevin, you've got your contact information. I'm getting ready to share that again here on a slide, but you've put it over inside of chat. So if you want to be able to get a hold of Kevin directly, you've got his email address visible over in chat, as well as the handouts.
And just a final reminder, if you need the CPE, you do need to participate in this poll, and we will leave it open for a few more seconds, and then we'll close it out and wrap things up. Closing it now. Thank you.
Kevin, thanks for jumping on today. Thanks for being able to answer questions on the fly. I definitely appreciate the questions that were asked today too. And it was fun having this back and forth from the accountant perspective, and then also being able to have your expert Divvy advice and knowledge. So thank you for being with us today, Kevin.
My pleasure. It was a pleasure talking with you and getting to know all of you.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. Gary, I'll pass it back to you.
All right, we'll call it a wrap. Kevin, good luck in the Olympic pre-trials when you get there. Best of luck.
Thank you.
I guess Godspeed, right? That carries a real meaning with that one. It's all about the speed. So, good luck to you. Thank you.
Thank you.